Welcome to RonTape. In the initial sequence, a captive individual by the name of Ray Bradstone engages in a telephone discussion with a female, while concurrently, another detainee enters and disrupts the exchange. Ray endeavors to evade altercations, however, as the detainee persists in chattering, he responds by delivering a solitary blow to the face, resulting in the individual being rendered unconscious. Subsequent to serving a term of 7 years, Ray is eventually discharged from confinement a few days later. Just prior to his departure, he gives some literature he had been perusing to the correctional officer. In a short while, a gentleman by the name of Philip LaRue drives up in his elegant automobile and proposes to Ray that they engage in bank robbery. It is disclosed that Philip had been Ray's partner in crime during his prior transgressions. Philip endeavors to persuade Ray to participate in another heist, concurrently proffering him a lift in his vehicle. Upon hearing this, Ray interrupts and expresses his wish to be the one behind the wheel. Presuming Ray is amenable, Philip permits him to occupy the driver's position, but to his surprise, Ray takes off in the car, abandoning Philip at the scene. Upon arriving at his residence, he continuously fixates on a snapshot of his wife and daughter, fervently anticipating their imminent arrival. Having served a prolonged sentence in prison, he resolves to enhance his character and relinquish all negative tendencies. On the following day, when Ray visits his wife, Lynn Bradstone, and daughter, Sally Bradstone, Lynn reacts negatively despite their prolonged separation and articulates her reluctance to reunite with him. Attributing Ray's inability to fulfill his obligations as a husband and father to his unreliability, Lynn harbors unfavorable sentiments towards him. During their dialogue, Sally arrives from school and shares her mother's sentiments of discomfort towards Ray. Following this, the mother and daughter retreat inside, leaving Ray outside as they shut the door. The subsequent day, Ray appears at Sally's educational institution and extends an apology to her, although she remains disheartened by his previous actions. He endeavors to convince her of his reformation and assures her that he will always support her moving forward. Nonetheless, she remains unconvinced and departs from him with a cold demeanor. Shortly thereafter, Ray perceives the sound of firecrackers and upon approaching the commotion, he observes a group of schoolboys engaged in a physical altercation. Without delay, he intercedes and separates the combatants, directing them to the principal's office. At that moment, Sally's instructor, Miss Miller, approaches him and they exchange introductions. Admiring his eloquence, Miss Miller requests that he accompany them as a chaperone on a museum tour the upcoming week. Promptly accepting the offer, Ray considers it an excellent chance to connect with Sally. Later that evening, Philip visits Ray and makes the same request for a heist, but once more, Ray refuses. It transpires that Philip had double-crossed him previously, which had led to Ray's imprisonment. Ray returns to visit Lynn the next day and meets her current husband, who witnesses them kissing, leaving Ray upset. Despite this, Ray persists in trying to convince Lynn that he can bring happiness to their family. Despite Ray's claims that he can bring happiness to their family, Lynn points out that he is currently unemployed and unlikely to be able to make any changes. In an effort to find employment, Ray visits several organizations but is repeatedly rejected due to his criminal record. After discovering that his apartment is on fire, Ray's day goes from bad to worse. Feeling helpless, he eventually agrees to join Philip's team in their bank robbery scheme. In the following scene, Ray, Philip, and 2 other accomplices are seen driving towards the bank. During the ride, Goldie incessantly talks, prompting Ray to share that the only aspect of prison he enjoyed was being away from the group. Upon their arrival at the intended location, Philip and the other 2 members of the group don masks and proceed to break into the back of the building. Meanwhile, Ray is directed to remain in the car and wait for their return. As he waits, Ray notices Sally and her classmates boarding a bus for a museum tour. This sight triggers pleasant memories of their past experiences together, causing Ray to reflect on the wrongness of his current actions. In response, he throws the car keys into the bushes and decides to walk away. Ray proceeds to join the students on the bus and serves as a chaperone for their excursion. Upon spotting him, Sally becomes upset and demands that he exit the bus. Despite her protests, Ray remains steadfast in his decision to stay, as he fears that leaving will result in the permanent loss of his daughter. Meanwhile, Philip and the rest of the group successfully rob the bank and make their way back to the car, only to find that Ray has disappeared and the keys are nowhere to be found. Faced with no other options, they flee in an effort to evade capture. Dale rushes towards the school bus but trips and drops the bag of money, prompting him to flee the scene in fear of being caught. However, he is soon apprehended by the police and taken into custody. As Philip and Goldie attempt to flee the scene, they steal a car and happen to spot Ray on the school bus. Fueled by anger and a sense of betrayal, they begin to pursue him, but their pursuit comes to a halt when they collide with a truck. After the accident, Philip contacts the school and manages to acquire information regarding the destination of the school bus. In another location, Dale awakens to find himself in a hospital. In a swift turn of events, two police officers approach him and demand that he provide information regarding the bank robbery. Subsequently, following the interrogation, the police discover that the money bag is located in a nearby school bus. The subsequent scene portrays Ray and the students' arrival at the museum, where they receive the unfortunate news that their tour guide is unwell and unable to join them. Determined to ensure his daughter does not become bored, Ray steps up to lead the students on the museum tour, utilizing his wealth of knowledge about museums and animals that he gained from reading books during his incarceration. As he interacts with the students, Ray spots Philip and Goldie within the museum and promptly instructs the students to hasten their return to the school bus. Ray sets off the fire alarm, causing all visitors to evacuate the museum. Taking advantage of the commotion, he sneaks up on Philip and Goldie in the restroom and proceeds to physically assault them. Ray then makes it clear that he no longer wishes to be involved in their schemes. Afterwards, Ray drives the students to their next destination on the study tour. Upon their arrival, he waits for them to disembark before searching the trunk of the bus. To his surprise, Ray discovers the bag containing the stolen money. Initially, greed begins to consume him, tempting him to keep it for himself. However, he ultimately recalls his familial obligations and chooses to return the money, thereby putting an end to the chaotic situation. Ray contacts Philip, who is standing across the street, and signals him to approach with the money bag. However, as the police arrive on the scene, the two criminals decide to flee. Philip and Goldie become suspicious of Ray's intentions and begin to suspect that he is trying to set them up, leading them to seek the aid of a Mexican mafia gang in capturing Ray. Later that afternoon, Ray and the students proceed to their hotel, where Miss Miller instructs them to quietly retire to their respective rooms upon arrival. Ray takes possession of the money bag and enters his own room. Ray contacts Philip and arranges for him to collect the money from his current hotel location. However, Philip, suspecting that Ray may have betrayed him, insists that the money be transported to a more secure and secluded location. As Ray converses, Sally arrives and offers an apology for her prior behavior towards him. This leads to a joyful reunion between father and daughter, who were separated for a prolonged period of time. Later that evening, Ray takes Sally to a music store followed by a restaurant, kickstarting the process of reconciling their differences. Amidst all this, a group of detectives arrives at the hotel and interrogates Miss Miller regarding Ray's location, while also informing her of his status as a suspect in the bank robbery case. This revelation causes her to become extremely agitated. Shortly thereafter, Ray escorts Sally back to the hotel and encourages her to socialize with her friends, particularly Josh, who appears to have a fondness for her. Sally happily returns after enjoying quality time with her father. However, her happiness is soon diminished upon discovering news of Ray's arrest on robbery charges. Filled with rage, Sally confronts Ray, accusing him of betraying her trust yet again. Despite the harsh exchange, Ray refuses to abandon his efforts to reconnect with his daughter. He provides a full account of the situation to Sally, which ultimately assuages her anger. As the detectives draw near, Ray takes notice of their presence and becomes aware of the danger he faces. To avoid raising any suspicions, he instructs Sally to retrieve the money bag from his room. After she retrieves the bag, Ray advises her to socialize with her friends while he sets out to return the money. Complying with her father's request, Sally sets out to return to her friends. However, she is seized by Philip and Goldie. Meanwhile, upon reaching the designated location, Ray discovers that he has been duped, leaving him to face the fury of 3 incensed members of the Mexican gang. Ray dispenses a savage beating, swiftly overpowering the trio. Shortly thereafter, he receives a call from Philip, who informs him that Sally has been abducted. Enraged, Ray warns Philip against harming his daughter, threatening dire consequences. However, Philip remains unmoved, directing Ray to a clandestine location to arrange the exchange. Without delay, Ray flags down a taxi and rushes to the designated site. Upon reaching there, he hands the driver some money and tells him to leave as soon as Sally is safely aboard. As per the plan, Sally successfully escapes and returns to the hotel with her friends. But realizing that her father is in danger, she decides to assist him. She enlists the help of 3 of her male friends, Josh, Simon, and Benny. Simon uses his iPad to track her father's phone, while Benny distracts the detectives with firecrackers, giving them the chance to sneak out of the hotel. A few moments later, Sally and her friends arrive at the location and divide into 2 teams. One distracting the criminals with firecrackers and the other untying Ray. In the midst of all this, Ray contacts an acquaintance, a radio announcer who broadcasts the voice recordings live. Eventually, the police as well as Lynn hear the broadcast and rush to the crime scene. Soon after, Philip and Goldie hold Ray and the students at gunpoint. Philip, who's unaware that their conversation is being recorded, openly admits that Ray is completely innocent and that they only wanted to take advantage of him. The 2 are on the verge of shooting everyone when the police arrive and apprehend them. Ray is finally declared innocent as he was on the bus with the students during the bank robbery. Soon after, Lynn arrives and is relieved to find out her daughter is safe, but she slaps Ray for putting the children in danger. Ray takes it without a word and states that he has become a better person. In the final scene, Ray is in a radio station when Philip calls him for advice on how to adapt to prison life. Ray suggests 3 essentials: confront it, be honest, and sleep with the bag against the wall.